Hello, mathematicians. This is Mr. Smith again, back with episode 2 of the Math Nicknames series. This episode is called Improper Fractions and Mixed Numbers, or en español, Fracciones Impropias y Números Mixtos. As you see in our picture here, we have two tape diagrams. They're both broken into thirds. One of them is completely colored in and 2/3 in the next part. We can either say 1 and 2/3 or 5/3. You see that equal sign? It means they're the same thing, they're the same size, just a different way of writing it. It's just like in our last episode when we talked about equivalent fractions. We can rename things and give it a nickname because that's how creative math is. Let's get into it. So you remember from the last time, the nicknames are names people give to each other for fun and to show their affection for each other. For example, my first name is Leroy, but some of my friends and family call me Lee. You can call people who you know either their nickname or formal name. They're still the same people. Remember in episode 1 we said equivalent fractions are like nicknames because they're still the same size, but they have a different number of parts. Well, in this episode, we're going to talk about how improper fractions and mixed numbers are the same exact fraction or same size, but we just write them two different ways. Here's some example of nicknames from names that are common names that we use. For Annette, you can call her Anna or Ann. It's still Annette. Or for William, we could say Will or Bill. Still William. Remember, they're the same people. Mixed numbers and improper fractions are the same size. We just write them two different ways. Let's get into it. So our content objectives are, we will convert improper fractions into mixed numbers. Our language objectives. The first one, we will say improper fractions are greater than one whole because the numerator is greater than the denominator. Our second language objective, we will say mixed numbers are greater than one whole and has a whole number and a fraction. As you see, this language I'm about to highlight here is super important. Both improper fractions and mixed numbers are greater than one whole, but they just represent two different ways of doing it. So we have here in orange, with improper fractions, the numerator is greater than the denominator. But with mixed numbers, we have a whole number in green and a fraction. Remember, improper fractions and mixed numbers are the same size and number, but they just are written differently. We're going to see more about that in a moment. First, let's cover some vocabulary. An improper fraction. I'm going to use yellow to highlight some important information. It's a fraction that's equivalent to or larger than one whole. The numerator is larger than the denominator. Let's look here. 5 halves. Look, 5 is the numerator, is greater than 2 is the denominator. Let's look at some other examples here. Do you see this example I'm about to circle in purple? 7/4. Look at that. We have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, 7/4. That's greater than one whole because the numerator is greater than the denominator. And if you look at the bottom here, 5/3. 5 is greater than 3. If you look here, 8/5. 8 is greater than 5. So we know it's improper fractions are greater than one whole. What are improper fractions greater than? You got it, one whole. And the numerator is greater than the denominator. What is the numerator greater than? The denominator. Excellent. I can tell you're paying attention. Oh, remember that star from the last time? It's our Cognate alert. In English, we say improper fractions. In Espanol, we say fracciones impropias. Remember, cognates look similar and sound similar. Next vocabulary word, mixed fraction or mixed number. We're going to say mixed number for this lesson. And I'm going to highlight some important information here. It's written with a whole number and a fraction like we said before. Now let's come down here and look at one of these examples. I'm going to use red to circle just one of these examples. So the example I'm going to use here is 1 3/4. Now let's look here. We have one whole that's completely, do you see this hole here? That's one whole. And then we have 3/4. So we can say 1 whole, 3/4, or 1 3/4. But remember, we can also call it an improper fraction by saying 7/4. We can say we can count it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7/4, but it's also one whole colored in and 3 more fourths. They're the same thing. They're nicknames for each other. They're the same size. They're the same number. They're just written differently. Remember, a mixed number has a whole number and a fraction. What does a mixed number have? A whole number and a fraction. You're absolutely correct. And the mixed numbers are greater than one whole. What are mixed numbers greater than? You got it, one whole. Oh, another cognate alert. So in English we say mixed numbers, and in Espanol we say números mixtos. So here is an example of an improper fraction. Notice I'm going to highlight here in orange. You see this bracket here? Well, it came out in red. This bracket represents where the hole is. What does that bracket represent? Yes, where the hole is. In this case, we have 4 parts in our hole. So that's where I have the 4/4. That 4/4 is equal to 1 whole. 4/4 is equal to what? 1 whole. Perfect. And look here, I have 1 more fourth. I have 1 more fourth here. 1 more fourth here. Well, I can add those together. 4/4 plus 1/4 is, yes, you're right, it's 5/4, which is greater than 1. Oh yeah, you're right on it. You're right on the money. It's greater than 1 whole. So in this case, our picture shows 5/4. Say 5/4. Great. We know it's 5/4 because we have 4/4 plus 1/4, which is 5/4. This is an improper fraction because the numerator, which is 5, is greater than the denominator, which is 4. Why is 5/4 an improper fraction? Oh yeah, it's because the numerator is greater than the denominator. And it's also greater than 1 whole. Oh, now I have the same picture. Remember we said that these are nicknames for each other, but this time we have mixed numbers. We still have 4/4. And I'll highlight that in yellow. We still have 4/4 plus 1/4. We said in a previous slide that it's 5/4, and that is correct. But as a mixed number, I have 1 whole and then 1/4 here. Let me show you what I mean. This section here is 1 whole, equals to 1 whole. Then I just have 1 extra fourth left right there. So 1 whole plus 1/4 equals 1 1/4. Notice in a mixed number, I have a whole number and I have a fraction. What 2 parts do I need in a mixed number? Excelente. I need a whole number and a fraction. And remember, mixed numbers are greater than one whole. What are mixed numbers greater than? One whole. Awesome. So this particular picture, I can say it's 1 and 1/4, or as a mixed number, or as an improper fraction, 5/4. This is important to remember, our vocabulary for today. Remember, we talked about an improper fraction. The key to remember here for improper fraction, it is greater than one whole, and the numerator is greater than the denominator. Remember, for our cognates, improper fractions, fracciones impropias. Say that. In English, improper fractions. Your turn. In Espanol, fracciones impropias. Your turn. Awesome. And our second vocabulary word that we have for today, mixed number. A mixed number has a whole number and a fraction. What does it have? A whole number and a fraction. Perfect. Now we see here that a mixed number has a whole number and a fraction. And it is greater than one whole. What is it greater than? You got it, one whole. Remember our cognate alert. In English we say mixed numbers, and in Espanol we say números mixtos. So in English, mixed numbers. Your turn. Say mixed numbers. In Espanol, números mixtos. Say números mixtos. Perfecto. Thank you for everything. Now look out for episode 3. Episode 3 is we're going to talk about decimals and the nicknames for decimals. Look out for the video. It's coming soon. Bye.